Hello, happy Monday. This week we are going to talk about the full moon is happening at 24 degrees of Leo. Sun will be in Leo, moon will be in Aquarius, and that is a full moon. But before we get there, I have been doing a lot of thinking about the past, and I've been thinking about just my trajectory in business and how long I've been doing this and how much I have grown over these past decade plus of doing this. And I want to go back to me in 2011. I promise this will connect, but go with me. So 2011, I was graduating from my master's program at Illinois State University, and I was married at the time. And usually about this time, January, February, before graduation is when you really start doing a job search and thinking about what you're going to do next. My background and my focus at that time was about getting a job with university housing at somebody's institution. So a lot of my experience in higher ed is living with other students and making sure they stay alive. That's the most general, simple way I could put that. Of course, it's more complicated than that, but that's what a lot of my background is staying in like residence halls, or you may say dorms, and managing that building, that tower, what have you. And there's this place that you go to, there are like multiple like job events that we do in higher ed where everybody will meet in a certain location for a weekend, and then you would take 2 or 3 days to just do a bunch of interviews, because that saves everybody the time, the logistics, the mental gymnastics that you need to do when you're job searching. You know how like you apply to the job and then you got to do the phone interview, and then they have to go through the whole process, where these what they're called placement exchanges, where you meet up in the weekend, you do all of that in one place. So one of the places I went to is Oshkosh, Wisconsin. If you've never been there, don't worry about it, okay, friend? Because it might as well be Canada. Now, somebody's gonna call me rude for saying that, but it's in the northern part of Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh. I went there February of 2011. It's a weekend, so you like that there's like this online portal, and you say, here are all the schools I'm interested in, and you like do a general uploading of like your resume, your CV, and like recommendation letters. So all of that is there. And so it's kind of like a matching process. You say, I'm interested in all these schools, and then if the schools are interested in you, then they'll reach out and y'all can schedule an interview during that weekend. So it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning situation. Usually on Friday is where you try to get as many interviews as possible, because these are the first round of interviews. On Saturday, you try to reserve that space for second round interviews, which are usually longer, and it allows you to do more in depth. And very rarely would you do like a Sunday morning situation, because most of the time people are trying to travel and go back home. But Sunday morning is usually like maybe both sides or one of the sides is kind of sure but not quite sure, and so they may tell you to meet in for breakfast or whatnot. And at this particular placement exchange, we're in like old school like towers, you know, those like 13, 14, 15 floor residence halls. Like you are literally in somebody's bedroom, you know, on those beds doing a job interview, like full out suit, everything. You're doing an interview in somebody's dorm room, and the school will like decorate the room according to their school colors and mascots and stuff. So it's kind of cute, but it is like a little bit ridiculous. Anyway, I went there in 2011, and I was excited because one thing about me, while I hate the whole logistics of job searching, I love interviewing. I'm like, it's time to perform. Let's do it. Anyway, I walked out of there with 3 strong contenders of where I wanted to work. I probably did a total of like 30 interviews of that weekend. I walked away with 3 schools that I was like, yep, I'm really excited. It was a like high school, alternative high school. There was Western Illinois University, and then there was Georgia College. And so the next step after that weekend is to do an on-campus visit, where you go to the school, you meet the people, you get a feel. This is more like I call this like the personality interview. Everybody's just trying to figure out will we get along, because we're gonna be working together a lot. So I go to the alternative high school, And I'm like, I love it. This feeds my passion. I love working with high school students. If you didn't know, my undergrad degree, I was all focused on becoming somebody's high school chemistry teacher. But the whole No Child Left Behind thing, I couldn't get with. But I was like, this could be the best of both worlds because I could work as a resident manager for alternative on campus, like high school. So that was good. I loved it, but the pay was dismal. The pay wasn't speaking to me. And I was like, that's gonna be my backup school. Then I go to Western Illinois. And I love it. Y'all, at some point, I think we all forgot that we were on an interview. I was there maybe 3 days. Listen, we went to the movies. We went to happy hour. We went to it's a small town. We went to the steakhouse. Okay, I met the whole town. Like, when I tell you the white people love me, loved me. I was like, yes, this is it. And I will say that job had the most potential for me to move up, to grow, to learn, to skyrocket my career in higher ed and what I was going to be responsible for. It usually takes people 5 to 10 years to get what they were willingly offering me, and they offered me the highest form of payment. So I was like, no brainer, duh. But then I went to go talk to my husband, and he was like, yeah, I hear you, and it'll be fine, but he said, Yahweh, God. He was like, Yah said we need to move to Georgia, and while I'll be okay if we go to Western Illinois, I won't be happy. And our marriage was, in my brain in that moment, I would say we were on the rocks. We were definitely on the rocks, okay? Me looking back, I would have looked at me and said, girl, if you don't run from him and go to Western Illinois, you better. But I didn't. At that moment, I was very committed to working on my marriage. I was very committed to making sure we both were happy. And I had a lot of guilt around the fact that I was so educated because now I'm going to have a master's degree. And I had so much guilt around, like, I had all these job opportunities. Listen, Western Illinois was even going to give him a job. Right, like, and so I had all this guilt, and so I'm trying to make a case to him of, like, we should go here because you're gonna have a job, I'm gonna have a job, it's gonna be so good. But he was just like, no, we're supposed to go to Georgia. And the shame of being so quote unquote accomplished, and the shame of marrying somebody in secret, even though I knew no one liked him around me. Like my family, my friends, they tolerated him, but no one liked him. And I could not see it in the moment, y'all. I just was like, y'all, he's so great. What do you mean you don't like him? And so the shame of putting my schooling first, being so ambitious, and then marrying somebody who I know no one liked, I was committed to showing everybody that they were wrong, that this was all gonna work out. Like, I was so committed to, you don't know him like I do, and we just need to get the right circumstances. Like, once we both have jobs, once we both can get on our feet, you're gonna see that all of y'all were wrong. Anyway, so after he says that, like, I won't be happy unless we go to Georgia, but I'll do it, I was like, fine, let me take these people up on their offer and let me go to this on-campus interview in Georgia College. Wow. The best thing about the trip was the airport. I love me Atlanta airport. I don't know what it is. I think it's the people watching love the airport. But I need you to understand something. So I have to fly from Chicago to Atlanta, which is not bad. It's like an hour and a half, 2-hour trip total. Then I have to get a rental car at the Atlanta airport and drive another 2 hours to the school because the school is in the middle of Georgia. Okay, the biggest things they got going is the Walmart and the school. Everything else is very small town, middle Georgia. But I love me some Milledgeville. Anyway, so I get there, and of course the people love me. And this is when I had my like teeny weeny afro, y'all. It's so cute. Anyway, people love me, but I just kept thinking, like, I mean, it's cool, but it does not connect with my passion like the high school. They're treating me like a glorified grad student. I'm about to graduate my master's. I did that part already. The work that I would be doing would be so easy. And if you know anything about me, the worst thing you could tell me is like, oh, here's this new opportunity doing the same shit you were just doing. Like, I cannot stand to be bored, and I cannot stand to not learn something. But I kept being like, I mean, the weather's nice all year round. No more winter. I love winter, but anyway. But he kept calling me. My husband at the time kept calling me and being like, you like it, you like it. And I was like, I mean, it's all right. Anyway, I go home and everybody's like, just choose what you want. You got these 3 great job offers. You should choose what you want. And if you only have like 2 or 3 days to make a decision. They gave me a little bit more time because I had to do that 3rd on-campus interview, but I do these 3 interviews in like a week to give you an idea. And so I have like 2 days to make a decision. I'm going back and forth, and ultimately I choose to come to Georgia. So I graduate in May of 2011. We moved to Georgia like January 30th, like 28 or something, because I start work on July 1st. And I remember we went to go watch the Avengers, and then we got on the road. Now, this is a whole nother story time for later, but we run out of gas at some point in the middle of this trip. We have negative bank account balance in the middle of nowhere. Y'all, it's a disaster, but that's not the point of this story. I wanted to tell you that background so you know how I get to Georgia. So I get to Georgia. It's awful, y'all. It's awful. That's a whole nother story time, but it's awful. I hate every minute of it, but I am committed. I'm committed to making this work, okay? We get to about September, October. It would have been around an eclipse time. We get to September, October, and I've done everything. I've seen so many therapists, talked to so many people who wanted to do mediations, talked to this awful preacher, pastor, whatever, to do all this couples counseling. Friends come and visit us to try to help us save our marriage. Like, it's a whole thing. To the point where, y'all, I am listening gospel 24/7. Okay, I am listening to gospel 24/7, trying to keep my mind together because I'm in the middle of nowhere. I know no one. The only person I do know is acting the ass, and I feel trapped. I feel so trapped in this marriage, in this middle of nowhere, that I'm like, I don't know. I just like give up at some point. Like, I'm just trying to survive. And in the midst of this, I think I had like a new laptop or something. And I was just like, is this even possible? Is it even possible for Black women to be happy? Is that even a thing for Black women to be happy? And so I go to my laptop and I go to Google and I type in happy Black woman. I'm like, is that a thing? And what comes up is a website called Happy Black Woman. And it's all about this Black woman who lives in the DC area, and she has a nonprofit that she runs. She does some consulting, and she works her like 9 to 5 in corporate where she's like management level somewhere. And she's just talking about her journey of, going natural and doing the big chop and going vegan. And I just started reading it, and this becomes my thing that keeps me grounded day to day. Like, every day I check her blog to see, like, did she update it? Is there anything new there? And pretty soon she's like, yeah, I'm leaving my 9 to 5. I'm going to go take a road trip. I'm going to get rid of everything that I own, sell my apartment, sell all my belongings. And I'm only going to have what can fit in my car. And that's it. I'm living this new, because this is when minimalism really started to take off. She's like, I'm living this minimalist lifestyle. And she puts all this stuff in her car, and she's just driving down the East Coast of the United States and staying at different Airbnbs, right? This is when Airbnb first hits the scene. People we staying at other people's houses, like, that's a thing. And she is talking about this, and then somehow she ends up in Hawaii, and then she starts saying, I can help you start a business. And I'm just like, yes. I'm just like, this is so cool. I would love to be a person who could just drive in their car and just stay whatever and just make money from the internet. I'm like, how do people make money from the internet? I need y'all to understand, this is 2011. I'm like, how are people making money from the internet? And I just watch her journey, and like pretty soon after that, she gets $100,000. Like, she makes it to the $100,000 level. And then she's just saying, like, this is amazing. Her podcast, and she has this huge podcast, and she has like this whole coaching community. And I'm like, what is that? Now, time-wise, we are definitely moving. This is really sketchy because I'm using my memory and not my journal right now. But I would say around this time, towards the end of 2011, going into 2012, my ex-husband, or my husband at the time, goes to my boss's boss's boss. Hear what I said? My boss's boss's boss, like the top person. He storms into his office and he's like, he says a lot of things. Well, one of the things most notably he says is like, my wife can't work without my permission, and she definitely can't work until you give me more benefits, because we are one and we both need the benefits. And so I get this, again, we're gonna have this story time another time, but I get this call from this guy. Y'all, I need you to know that I do not like this man. I can barely say hi to this man. So for him to be calling me on my phone himself to say come to his office, I was shook. So I get into this man's office and he's like, yeah, let me tell you about what your husband did, blah blah blah. And I'm like, listen, I didn't tell this man he needs to leave, but you know, Georgia got these laws where you can't just be kicking people out their house and whatnot. He said, oh, let's call the university lawyer. We call the lawyer. The lawyer's like, the rules don't apply here. This is a part of your benefits. Anyway, we go back and forth. And this results in me telling my ex-husband, you got 2 weeks to get out or I'm calling the police on you for trespassing. And I do not want to call the police on a black man in the middle of Georgia, in a small town in middle Georgia. That's not the look. I do not want to be on nobody's TV screen. So you need to get out. He leaves. Now, why am I telling you this? Because this starts my separation and then ultimately my divorce process, because I get a divorce like 6 months later. But in this grieving process is I dig deeper in this whole online space. And now I'm not only following the happy black woman person, but I'm following all these other creators and all these other people who are making a living online, who are really figuring out how to do this. And I just become tapped into this whole like spiritual journey. I started meditating every day. Listen, Super Soul Sunday stayed on my TV. Okay, I figured out, I was like, there has to be it wasn't as easily accessible online. So I'm trying to figure out, there was something, we were all like a Roku or something. I don't know. I was watching whatever saved episodes I could get my hands on. Cast was really big, and I do this like 6 months locked in to the point that I'm like, maybe I could do this. I started thinking to myself, maybe I could do this. So in my meditations, I started seeing visions of me sitting in front of a laptop, sitting in front of a computer, blowing my mind. And I'm like, oh, that's just whatever. Why did I take the first 20 minutes of this episode? Because I want you to reflect on, where were you in 2011? What was happening for you in 2011? Because that is when Neptune starts to move into Pisces. Currently, in 2025, Neptune is sitting at the end of Pisces. Neptune home is Pisces, and Neptune rules our dreams, our intuition, the woo, the mysticism, the magic in the air, if you will. There was something that was revealed to you in 2011, 2012, around there, that you thought, I don't know, is that possible? Because it will almost feel like a whisper or something you can barely touch, and if you're not tuned in, you might miss it. That's how I think about intuition, or that's how I think about when I'm getting a message from spirit. If that's what it feels like. It feels like very calm, very soft, very like, hey, matter of fact, even like, hey, one day you're gonna have a community of people, and then it just, as it came in, it goes away. To me, that's how you know the difference between your intuition or spirit speaking to you versus your anxiety. But I just kept getting all these messages about how I was going to be speaking on stages or speaking in front of people or being in front of a computer outside, which didn't make sense because Zoom isn't a thing at this point. What is that? Skype is just now becoming a thing. But still, people are not even using it in that way. Like, people are doing coaching calls on telephones. Like, it's not what it is today. So that didn't make sense to me in 2011. But I just kept going. I kept like researching people and dreaming about one day. Even, about 2012 is when I make my very first, not my very first, but I started trying to make more regular YouTube videos. It was about losing weight and what I was eating, or just makeup videos. And I still have them on my YouTube channel. But that's what was given to me. Now that we are in 2025, we are at the end of that journey. So whatever was happening, whatever message was given to you in 2011, I want you to think about, how far have you come? How far have you come since 2011? Think about, and if you don't feel like, if you don't resonate with the whole spirit thing, what goals did you have in 2011? Like when you thought about 2021, 2022, like 10 years from then or 5 years, where did you think you would be? Where did you hope you would be? For me, part of it was I was like, oh, that'd be cool to have my own business. But I was also still very much like higher ed is the way. So I would have told you that by this point, I would have been someone's like vice president of student affairs or someone's dean of students, because that's ultimately was my goal that I wanted. It wouldn't be until 2013 that I invested in my first like business course program. And then it wouldn't be until 2015 when I actually started more like consistently putting things on the internet and saying I have a business. And then 2017 is when I get my first client. So a journey started in 2011. I don't get my first client until 2017. In that 6 years, there was a lot of learning and researching and courage I had to build. In those 6 years, that's how long it took me to get started, or like to get a result that in my brain said, oh, this is working. That's important in a minute. In many ways, 2025 will mirror or rhyme with 2017. In many ways, you should feel very similar. You might, like, a lot of conversations I've been having lately is like, it feels very 2017-ish up in here. Like, it feels very much like we went back into time, but not quite. So 2017 is when I get my first paying client. It's when I become a doctor. And it's when I make the decision that I will not stay in higher ed. Those three things happen. In 2017 was a very challenging year. Like, I felt like I did the most. And 2017 is the year that I will talk about the most afterwards, because it is a year I became doctor, and my business as a dissertation coach would mean how did I finish my dissertation and what was my journey. So it's a year that, although it was hard in a moment, it's a year that I draw from, that I've been drawing from for the past 8 years to talk about, to build this dissertation coaching business. Now that I'm sitting here in 2025, I feel like I'm going through another graduation of sorts. When I look back to me in 2011, there's so much I want to tell her. There's so much I wish I could do for her. But because she had the bravery and she made the decisions that she did, is how I'm here today. After that whole thing of him leaving in 2011 and us going into 2012, I started to like deal with my grief around my marriage and everybody being right. And in many ways, really understanding how society treats single women and definitely treats divorced women. The hardest part of that was seeing how those who I thought were closest to me responded to me separating from my ex-husband. People who I would have told you were my day ones, my parents, my brother, my cousins. My ex-husband called everyone, our mutual friends, anyone who knew me, anyone who knew us, and he said that I was cheating on him, that I was neglecting him, that I just wasn't being the wife I was supposed to be. And so I was getting all of these phone calls from people asking me why was I treating him so awful, like to the point my mom came to visit us for a couple of weeks and she was begging me to like give him another chance. And I was so confused because I'm like, of all the things that you've heard that this man has done to me, what is happening? But it showed me that the world is built for the abusers, not the ones who are being abused. Let that sit in your spirit. The world is built for those who are the abuser, not the one who's being abused. That's a whole podcast episode in itself. So this journey from 2011 to now, in many ways, I primarily consciously focus on how I've grown in business. But when I step back and I think about who I was in 2011, a lot of this growth has been about, I have to save myself. And the best way to save myself is to focus on my passions, is to focus on the things that fill me up because it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to separate from these relationships. It's going to be hard to realize that the people you thought were going to be on your side are not going to be on your side, and you're going to need something that helps you continue to move forward. So I doubled down on my spirituality. I doubled down on business, and I kept doubling down on making this career for myself in higher ed. Essentially, I had to cut myself off. I had to learn how to cut off emotional ties to people who were not going to help me get to where I saw myself going. That's what this full moon is about. I said all of this for 30 minutes to say, this is what this full moon is about. We have a full moon in Leo. Leo is about the individual, the person, the one who is expressive and bold and creative and entertaining. Like, a Leo energy is an energy that you can't help but to watch and marvel at, right? Leo is ruled by the sun. So the sun, being in his home sign, is like, yes, be bold, be loud, focus on you. But the moon is an Aquarius. It's the opposite of Leo. Aquarius is like, I don't want to necessarily be center of attention in that bold, charismatic way, but I want to be center of attention to help everybody else. Like, think about an Aquarius as someone who is the leader or the example, or right, it's still center of attention, but it's not center of attention like, oh, look at me. It's center of attention like, look at me so you can look at we. Hopefully this is making sense. When there's a full moon, that means the sun is directly opposite of the moon. It's 180 degrees separation. When something like that happens in astrology, think about it as like a tug of war. It's like the sun wants to do things its way, the moon wants to do things its way. So the sun wants to be bold and loud and all about the self. And the moon is like, but what about your emotions though? Like, what about the people? What about, how are you giving back? So you have these two energies that on the surface look like they're opposite and they don't agree, but a full moon or an opposition, the goal is, how do you use two energies that seem opposite and use them to work together? So in this case, how do you take your bold expressiveness and use it to help people, to help others, to disrupt oppression and abuse? Come back to using me, right? I'm someone, I went through this whole story about out of pain, out of feeling like I was losing everyone, I started on this business path and building community and helping people do impossible shit and do things that scare the shit out of them. That's my specialty, really. I just happen to do that mostly with PhD students or those who want to start a business. But at the core of what I do is helping you to do it like you're scared, do it anyway, but do it in a way that's sustaining, that feels safe, even though you're doing some scary ass shit. Because I've had to do a lot of scary shit over my life, but especially since 2011. At this full moon, there's a call to say, what if my part, my growth, this growth that I've been doing over the past 14 years, that's crazy to say, by the way, but the growth I've been doing over the past 14 years, the cycle is coming to an end because Neptune is about to leave Pisces and go into Aries. It's going to leave the last sign of the zodiac and go to the first sign, meaning there's a whole new cycle starting. And for you, and I'm just using me so that you have an example, but for you, there's a cycle of you ending too. So like I said, go back to 2011 and go back to what it is that you thought, where you thought you would be, what you were working on, what your goals are, and how much have you evolved. We are now at the point where we did it. We paid our dues, we put in the work, we learned the lessons. And of course, there's always some things to learn, there's always things to refine, but you're at the place where now you have to decide, are you going to help other people get to where you are, or will you forever just only worried about like what you have going on? It's kind of like we're definitely at a, what's that word called? Fork in the road. Okay, let me give you a different example. So let's take Kendrick Lamar. So yesterday was the Super Bowl and Kendrick was headlining. If we say Kendrick is the sun or Leo energy, and we say the Super Bowl is like Aquarius energy, right? And on the surface, Kendrick Lamar is getting all of the attention. but you have a solid 13 minutes where most of the world is watching this one event. I'm not gonna say most of the world, but a lot of eyeballs are watching this one event. It is an opportunity to say something. Now, a lot of people in their halftime show, they're just like, it's about me, right? When I think about a Rihanna, there was no guest performances. It was just all about her. But when you think about, in general, halftime performances, usually you bring people out. It's about the people. Like when Dr. Dre was headlining the Super Bowl, right? We had Snoop, we had Mary J. Blige, we had like Eminem, we had all these people on the field because it was like everybody's gonna make it. Whereas Rihanna was like, I'm not doing none of that. That's just Leo. How do we bring these two energies together? Well, Kendrick said, I am going to take all the attention that's around me. I'm going to take how everybody's hyping me up, and I'm going to use that attention to spread a message. There was a lot of hidden messages in that performance. Again, that's also another podcast episode. But the point I'm trying to make is because Kendrick has put in all this work over the past 12 years, 12 to 15 years, he's put in all this work, won all these awards, sold all these albums, this attention. He has now earned the spot to go into the Super Bowl. And he could have just been like, this is my moment. Aha, y'all suck. No, he has handled this whole situation with grace and has handled it as like, no, I'm here to tell a bigger message. My question to you who's listening is, what is the bigger message you're going to share now that you have a platform to do so? Your platform may not be the Super Bowl. Your platform may be that you're now like a director at your job. You may be someone who has been coaching for years at this point. You may be someone who's like a tenure track faculty. Like you have made it, quote unquote. If we go ask your 2011 self, you made it. What are you going to do with the fact that you made it? You can keep trying to make it. You can keep trying to go up the ladder, and it's not an either or. It's like you can go up for yourself. You could also help other people or have a bigger message. When I think about me, I'm still answering this question in many ways, but I'm feeling this call to really focus on astrology, not because it's like, oh, it's the new thing that everybody's latching on to, but I see astrology and overall like spirituality as something that we as a collective have forgotten. That is a big reason why we feel so exhausted and dead in many ways. We no longer, and I think about in particular like Black communities, like we no longer have the strong ties or affinity to churches, to these third spaces that help to feed us spiritually, but also gave us a place to connect with each other, where we felt safer to do it, where we felt like we could like take off the armor, at least like for a couple of hours every week. We no longer have those spaces, and I see the potential of astrology not acting in the same oppressive ways as religion, but it can give us a third space where we can take off the armor for a little bit and be with each other and under a shared experience. Like I said, I don't know where that's gonna end up going, but I just feel this call because I see what happened, like with me tapping into my spirituality so deeply over these past 14 years. I've seen how much it has helped me and how much it's changed me. If I go back to 2011 me, she didn't believe that she could survive that divorce. She didn't believe that she would ever get over it. And now me over here, it's like, ooh, girl, wait till you find out what's happening next. But I just will be forever grateful to 2011 me because the shit she had to go through was so hard. Even though it took me forever to tell the story here, y'all, I just scratched the surface. I didn't even go into all the details of it. But I just want you to know that without being grounded spiritually, without growing that part, because what has been consistent over these years is I have been growing spiritually. And as Neptune makes its final movements through Pisces, what I feel and even how my abilities have grown, I can't believe I'm saying this on the podcast, but it's true, for like how my abilities have grown. I could have never fathomed this in 2011. I don't know. Anyway. But I feel this responsibility to help more people tap into their own spiritual gifts and their own spiritual developments. For you, to make this practical for you, you are someone who's been working really hard and you're going to go through, or you might have been going through experiences where you realize the people who are around you, the people who you thought would go all the way with you, they're not. They're not going to go all the way with you. They're doing some shady stuff. Or maybe they're not even doing shady stuff, but you happen to be the strong friend in the group. And the question on the table is, why don't you have other strong friends? Why are you the only person in the friend group who knows to check in on the other people, who can handle the weight of the emotional problems? Why are you not reaching out to other people who are as strong as you, or not strong, or even stronger than you? It's, do you like the title or the burden of being a strong friend in a group? Like, do you get an identity boost from that? Is that why you don't have other friends who can match you? Like, these are some of the questions on the table. Are there other wounds that are coming up that you're just now comfortable with believing that about yourself, even though it does not help you, and it's probably in a lot of ways no longer true? So an example for me would be, I could be like, oh, I'm just still that young woman who is too ambitious, and yeah, she's too ambitious and she's too educated to have a man, and that's why her relationships keep failing. I could still be in that mindset, or I could see patriarchy for what it is. Okay, I feel like I'm rambling now, so I'm gonna stop. But what I'm gonna pull a card too. But what I want you to think about is, are the old wounds that you've been carrying around, the old stories, the fact that you've been paying your dues since 2011, the fact that you had to go through so many hardships and you feel beaten down, do you still want to pay attention to that? Or do you want to pick your head up long enough to realize that you have grown, that you have built resilience, that you have gotten to the place that you hoped you would be and beyond from 2011? And the only thing holding you back from moving forward to whatever the next cycle is you wanting to hold on to old wounds and stories, that you have to let them go in the same way that you're going to have to let go of some people who have been with you, who keep you attached to these old stories and these old wounds. Okay, let me pull a card. I'd love to know y'all thoughts about this, because I really thought about deleting this episode. This is my second time recording it, but I feel like technically I have more time, but I just feel like this is me in my head now. So y'all can help me. I'm like, do you even care about all of this I just shared? But this is what happens when we do something new. It just feels uncomfortable, and I trust that if people like it, they're still listening. You're still listening to me. If the people who didn't like it, they stopped listening a while ago, and that's okay. All right, let's see. We have 10 of Pentacles and 6 of Swords reversed. I think about the 10 of Pentacles, what it looks like I think about this as a card of legacy. It's an old man who's typically not on this deck that I'm using, but typically it's like an older person, an old man who's watching his family from a distance. Like, they're in the same house, but he's watching his family. Like, he's watching his kids and his kids, and there's dogs, and it's supposed to represent the legacy that you've built over time. Like, the reason why you put in the hard work and you made the money, or you got the fame or whatever, because it was for the family and it's for the generations to come. And the 6 of Swords, it's a mother and a child in a boat, and they're leaving their home with nothing but the clothes on their back. They're moving, like, they have to leave so quickly. When it's upright, they have to leave so quickly and so forcefully that they can only leave with a few items. When this card is reversed, it means that we have to go back, kind of like a retrograde. And I didn't even get into the fact that a Venus retrograde is coming, a Mercury retrograde is coming, and maybe we'll do that for the new moon, because that'll be more applicable for the new moon in Pisces. But when I put these two cards together, you're building your legacy. Like, you're at a very critical point of the legacy you're building over your life. There's just some things you need to go back and review. Some people you need to let go of that you keep holding on to, knowing that they're just holding you back, but it's very nostalgic to keep them. It helps you to feel more connected to your old self, your 2011 self. These past couple of weeks for me in particular, now listen, I would have told you I went through several purges over these past 14 years, and I would have told you there's nobody else to remove from my life. But don't ever say that out loud, okay? Because I keep learning the hard way. These past couple of weeks, things have been revealed about people that I didn't even think I could be shocked anymore, but things that I did not see, that my brain wouldn't allow me to see about them. Because when I think about these people, I think about the days of my business when it was starting, well, when it felt like it was finally working. Like the relationships that have ended are relationships that came in 2020, 2021. And these are the people who were around when I was like getting more, my audience was growing. And when I hit 100K and people started to recognize me as someone who was like for real in this game, relationships from that time period are ending. And it's sad because they're not ending on a positive way. They're ending on like, you're betraying me too. That's great. And so I've been forced to sit still and review, because the only reason why I was still holding on to these relationships because I didn't realize who I am. I didn't realize how far I've come. I would say that I still see myself in a lot of ways as that young woman in 2011 who's just trying to figure this all out. In many ways, I still feel like that PhD student who's just trying to get her first person to be her client. And what I didn't realize is that we're in 2025 and I'm so not her anymore. That not only do I get clients, I know exactly what to say right now and get a client today, which I thought I would never get there. I thought I could never live in a world where people would want to hear me speak or listen to a 45-minute podcast episode. So that blows my mind. And so I think about this Six of Swords is telling all of us to go back and review and to let go of some things. This also goes to this Chiron in Aries in a square Mars in Cancer. And that's a very technical astrology term to say this is going to be present very strongly, at least for the next couple of months, forcing us to go back and review wounds from the past and realize that those wounds have healed. That those wounds are not fresh anymore. That those wounds, the only reason why they feel achy is because we keep paying attention. We keep picking at them. But if we would let them be, if we would release them, then we will have the legacy that we want to build. Kendrick had to let go of doing things how he would do on the streets, right? Like thinking about somebody who grew up in the streets, LA, Compton, all the things. This whole Drake situation would have been handled completely different. He probably would have unalived Drake. But because he now has a legacy, he has now built this huge career and this huge platform, he could do what he used to do, but that would just take him backwards. Instead, is using this moment to still put Drake in his place, but to elevate a deeper message that will help more people, that would free more people, and then get the people talking. Because now today on Monday, everybody is deconstructing the performance and the meaning and the subliminals, and they're growing, that they're being impacted by the courageous decision that he made all those years ago to like take rapping seriously, and the decision he made currently to be like, I'm not gonna lose it all over one person and my ego. I'm not gonna make it all about me, but instead I'm gonna make it about we. I'm gonna make it about the people. And as a collective, especially as Americans, he was just pretty much like lock in. I want to do a full Super Bowl breakdown because I don't think people gonna like my view of it, but this has already gone on too long. Let me know your thoughts about this full moon, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye, y'all.